The Chinese Vice Premier Wang Yang paid a courtesy call on President Mugabe and Prime Minister Tsvangirai during his visit to Zimbabwe this week. The visit comes at a time when China has expanded its investments in mining, agriculture, and construction. Anjin, a Chinese mining company, is one of the few companies with rights to mine diamonds at the controversial Chiazwa fields in eastern Zimbabwe.
We'll meet in Ethiopia.
Christopher Mutsvangwa, a former Zimbabwe ambassador to China, said Zimbabwe had to turn to China after the imposition of sanctions by the West in the year 2000.
It blossomed after independence, and it took a new dimension, in the sanctions era when the Western countries sulky because of this Zimbabwe land reform, which was a big resource restitution to the indigenous people, post-colonial resource restitution to the indigenous people. It didn't go down well with the traditional Western colonial masters of Zimbabwe. They then became hostile. Zimbabwe to look for alternative friends, and China came in handy and to support the new Zimbabwe government economically at a time when China's economic fortunes were ramping up rapidly. There was a big, there was an economic boom in China, so there was a coincidence of need and ability. Zimbabwe's need for new capital, source of capital, and China's ability to become an alternative supplier of capital. Clearly, there are multi-million dollar investments. A coal plant, thermal coal plant doesn't cost less than 300 to 400 million, if not one, maybe even $1 billion US. This is the sort of figures we are talking about. So, entry into the energy sector entails multi-billion dollar investment on the part of the Chinese. Definitely the chrome sector. There's another Chinese company which is just about complete commissioning a chrome plant in Selu. There are other Chinese companies who are looking at the platinum sector. They've got concessions. So the mining sector has really been of interest to the Chinese.
Ibo Mandaza, a political analyst, said the Zimbabwe government had to be very careful in its business dealings with China.
We have to ensure that Chinese are actually investing, and not just extracting. Okay, and why not invite the Chinese to set up industries here? Why is the dominant trend that of merely extracting? We need investment which creates jobs. So if they want our steel and our copper, let them come and beneficiate the steel and copper here in partnership with ourselves. And not only with respect to the Chinese, but with respect to everybody else, including the Europeans. We have been extracting from our countries since the 19th century and before. Yeah? So we need to change the pattern of trade, right, towards real investment which creates jobs. The only problem there is that the African countries have not sufficiently put in place mechanisms and instruments to ensure that they get the maximum out of the investment, out of the business interactions. We know that countries which have been able to do that have benefited immensely from Chinese investment. A good example is that some of the deals tend to look dubious. They tend to be identified with certain individuals rather than with countries, with a country, and I think that needs to be rectified.
China has provided Zimbabwe.
Prime Minister Tsvangirai, a former labor unionist, said Chinese businesses were welcome to invest in Zimbabwe as long as they stuck to local labor laws.
Increase in Chinese investments in Africa and Zimbabwe.